Hello students and welcome once again to the e-learning portal of Balughat Mahila Mahavidyalaya. I've been teaching the students of semester 2 who have been studying for BSc Botany Honours under CBCS mode, and then we were discussing very important topic about bryophytes. Today also I'll be talking about bryophytes. In my earlier class I told in my next class I'll be talking about classification of bryophytes. But before talking about or discussing about classification, I want you to understand few of the terminologies that we will be discussing later on. The first one, I want you to know about ICN. ICN stands for International Code for Nomenclature of Algae, Fungi and Plants. All those organisms that can photosynthesize are grouped as plants. Even algae who can photosynthesize are now separated from the main plants and they are treated as a separate group. That is why ICN is an international body that will regulate, that will control the classification, the taxonomy, the nomenclature and characterization of all the plants and also fungi and also algae. Earlier ICN was known as ICBN. ICBN stands for International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, and now it is ICN. Why I am telling you about ICN or ICBN is that because classification of bryophyte that is proposed by different authors is certified by ICN. In your syllabus you have to study the classification about Proskier, and Proskier was the scientist who proposed the latest classification of bryophytes. And we will be talking about that in detail. Please follow the slides, and at the end of each section we will discuss about the things that are written in the slide. Please follow the slide. As I told you, we will be studying about the classification of bryophytes. According to the latest recommendations of ICBN, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, which is now known as International Code of Nomenclature for Algae, Fungi and Plants, bryophytes have been divided into three classes. The Hepataceae or Hepaticopsida known as liverworts, Anthocerote or Anthocerotopsida known as hornworts, and the third class is Muscae known as Bryopsida or mosses. Let us now understand about the scenario of Indian bryology. Sir Shivram Kashyap is known as the father of Indian bryology. He was a specialist on the bryophytes, especially from the Himalayan region, and was also the founder member of Indian Botanical Society. Sir Kashyap published a Flora of Lahore district in 1936. It is interesting to know that Ram Charan Chopra named one genus as Kashyapia in the honor of Sir S.R. Kashyap. The synonym for Kashyapia is Chiropodon. I would also like to tell you about the scientist who actually contributed to the classification of bryophytes, and the classification is accepted widely. Sir Johannes Max Proskier, a German scientist who did his education in London and was working mostly in Berkeley. He has contributed immensely to the field of bryophytes. In the year 1957, Proskier suggested a new classification of bryophytes. Later on, different workers, Parihar in 1965 and Holmes in 1986, followed the classification suggested by Proskier and divided Bryophyta into three major classes. Class 1, Hepaticopsida. Class 2, Anthocerotopsida, and class 3 Bryopsida. Now let us understand the characteristics of each of the classes as proposed by Proskauer 1957. Class 1 Hepaticopsida. This class is also known as the liverworts. This class includes about 280 genera and 9,500 species worldwide. It is interesting to know that the name of this class is derived from a Latin word hepatica, which means liver. Hence, the members of this class are commonly known as liverworts. As you can see here in the example, Relia, Rixia and Markensia, these genera show thalloid type of gametophyte, and Porella shows foliose type of gametophyte. The dominant plant body is the gametophyte and is a simple structure. As you all know, gametophyte is represented by n number of chromosomes. The next characteristic feature is that all the members of this class liverworts have rhizoids which are unicellular and branched. Looking at the figure on the right hand side of your screen, we see rhizoids which resemble roots of higher plants. The main function of rhizoids is the absorption of water and other nutrients from the substratum. They also contain photosynthetic tissues or cells and contain chloroplasts. Pyrenoids in the chloroplast are absent. I have given you the example of Markensia showing the thalloid type of gametophyte and Porella showing the leafy type of gametophyte. Another important characteristic feature of liverworts or Hepaticopsida is that the sex organs, the antheridium or the male sex organ, archegonium or the female sex organ, they are born on the apex, that is on the tip of the gametophyte, or sometimes they are embedded inside the tissue. As for example, in Rixia, the gametophyte contains sex organs which are embedded inside the tissue of the thallus, whereas in Markensia, the reproductive organs are born either on the tip or in the intercalary position. The members may be monoecious, that is, both male and female sex organs in one thallus, or dioecious, both male and sex organs in two different thalli, that is, there are two different male and female plants. The interesting thing about this class liverworts is they also have sporophyte that develops within the gametophyte. The sporophyte in Rixia is a simple type. It is a single cell that is surrounded by a single layer of involucre or a jacket. Whereas in Markensia, you will see a little developed type of sporophyte. The sporophyte contains a foot, a seta and a developed capsule. Well, the sporophyte will never leave the gametophyte and it always remains attached with the gametophyte. These are the important characteristic features of the class 1 Hepaticopsida. I hope you are following the slides carefully and also you are following the diagrams that have been given in the slides. But a brief summary of what you just saw now. We were talking about the classification proposed by Proskauer 1957, and this is the most widely accepted classification, and even till date ICN has also verified and ICN has also commended this classification. In this classification we were talking about class 1 Hepaticopsida. Now Hepaticopsida is the most simple class of Bryophyta, and as you are also seeing in the slide, Hepaticopsida, the name came from the organ called liver, and that is why all the members of Hepaticopsida are known as liverworts. There is another reason also for calling Hepaticopsida as liverworts, because the plant body is very simple. This is the main gametophyte, and then it will contain rhizoids. Sometimes gamma cups are also there. The plant body is thallus-like. It is very simple. This is the gametophyte, and then the sporophyte will arise from here in some cases. Now, the plant body is simple. The gametophyte will arise at the apex, and then the plant body or the gametophyte that is represented by n number of chromosomes is the dominant generation. That is what we learned about Hepaticopsida. Another thing about Hepaticopsida members, we saw that the sporophyte is very simple. In case of Rixia, the sporophyte is single wall layered. It doesn't have any, it develops inside the gametophyte. It doesn't have any food. In case of Markensia, the sporophyte is little bit well developed with food, with seta and a capsule. This is also developing inside the gametophyte. The sporophyte is never leaving the gametophyte. These are the simple structures, these are the simple features that you need to keep in mind while talking about Hepaticopsida. The representative members of the Hepaticopsida that we will study as a types genera in our later class is Markensia. Now talking about class 2, Anthoceratopsida. Anthoceratopsida are known as hornworts. The class is represented by only 6 genera and 300 species. It is also interesting to know that the members of Anthoceratopsida are commonly called hornworts because of the tapering horn-like sporophyte that lack seta. And when you see the sporophyte and the gametophyte on the right hand side of your screen, you will see a very simple gametophyte, but at the same time the sporophyte is developed than those of Hepaticopsida. Well, the sex organs in the members of the hornworts are embedded inside the thallus. The other interesting characteristic feature of Anthoceratopsida is in their sporophyte. The sporophyte is differentiated into foot and the intermediate zone of meristematic zones and the capsule. When you look at the image that is on the right hand side of your screen, you will find immediately after the foot there is a region of meristematic zone. The meristematic region of the sporophyte helps the sporophyte to grow indeterminate growth. That is, the sporophyte will always continue to grow. Sporophyte in hornworts is well developed. The sporophyte can photosynthesize, but at the same time will never leave the gametophyte and remains attached to the gametophyte throughout its life cycle. Interesting thing to note here is that the sporophyte will not contain seta and it will directly develop into a long cylindrical capsule. The cylindrical capsule contains columella in the central region. The sporophyte produces haploid spores. Now we will be talking about class 2. Class 2 is Anthoceratopsida. Anthoceratopsida is a little advanced class than the first class. Now Anthoceratopsida is also known as hornworts. If you will carefully look at the structure of the members of Anthoceratopsida, this is the gametophyte that is represented by a very simple thallus. Then there is a sporophyte. The sporophyte is a long cylinder tube-like structure and it represents horns of animals. That is why it is known as hornworts. Now the gametophyte is simple, the thallus. It is represented by N and this is the sporophyte 2N. When you look into the sporophyte and when you see the section of it, in the central region you will find a tissue called columella, and at the foot region you will find a group of tissue which are meristematic. So this meristematic tissue will help the sporophyte to continuously grow and the sporophyte growth never ceases. That is why Anthoceratopsida is separated from the class 1 Hepaticopsida. Now the member of this particular class that we will be studying in coming days is Anthocerus.
Now let us look in the third and the last class, class 3 Bryopsida, which are also known as the moss or the mosses. Bryopsida is the largest class in Bryophyta and includes about 700 genera and more than 14,000 species. The main plant body is the gametophyte and can be differentiated into two stages, the juvenile stage and the leafy stage or gametophore. As I told you in my introductory class, the juvenile stage is represented by a green protonema. Protonema is a short-lived structure which develops directly from the germination of spore and is haploid in nature. Gametophore or the gametophyte develops from the protonema. On the right hand side of your screen, you can see few examples of this class Bryopsida: Funaria, Polytrichum, Sphagnum and Pogonatum. We will be studying about Funaria and Sphagnum in detail in my coming classes. The gametophyte is also developed in Bryopsida in comparison to other two classes of Hepaticopsida and Anthocerotopsida. In Bryopsida, gametophores are branched or they can be unbranched, but they are differentiated into parts like rhizoids, stems and leaves. When you look at the leaves carefully, you can also see a midrib. The leaves with midribs are unlobed and are spirally arranged in 3 to 8 rows on the axis. Let us now look into the sex organs of Bryopsida. All the members, they have a very well developed archegoniophore and anthridiophore. Both the sex organs are either produced in groups or they are in chains. Like here in example, you see the anthridial and archegonial. Let us now look into the sex organs of the class Bryopsida. Sex organs are born apically. Apically means at the tip of the gametophyte or in groups or on the main stem or a branch. Here in example, you can see the example of Funaria and Sphagnum. In Funaria, the archegonia and the anthridia are born in groups at the tip of the gametophyte, whereas in Sphagnum, the sex organs, the anthridium and the archegonium, are on the lateral branches. The most interesting characteristic feature of the class Bryopsida is the sporophyte. The sporophyte is green in early stages and can be differentiated into foot, a seta and a capsule. The seta is usually elongated and is very rigid, and columella is present inside the seta. When you look at the sections, the transverse sections or the longitudinal sections of the sporophyte, you will see a very interesting character, that is the peristome teeth. On the left hand side of your slide, you will see the example of Funaria capsule. You can see small projections like structure. Actually, these are peristome teeth that occupy the upper part of the capsule. The role of the peristome is to control the exit of spores, and they also help in spore dispersal. When you see at the vertical section of the capsule, you will find a well organized tissue system in the capsule. There are tissues known as apophyses. There are conducting strands at the seta region. The capsule is also divided into hypodermis and the region called as a spore sac, and inside the spore sac the development of haploid spore takes place. The spore is generally liberated by the opening of the lid called operculum. In this case, you can see the members of Bryopsida shows very advanced characters. That is why Bryopsida is also related to the higher plants in certain functions. We will talk about those functions in our later classes.
Now Bryopsida. Bryopsida is class number 3. According to Puruskaya, the Bryopsida is considered to be the most advanced class in the bryophytes. Bryopsida is also a very big class that contains more than 1,000 number of species, and in India too there are a lot of species. Why Bryopsida is considered to be a very advanced class? Number 1, you have noted in the slides, the gametophyte is very well developed. It will contain leaf-like structure known as leaves. There is a small stem and there are even rhizoids. True roots are still absent here. The gametophyte is very well differentiated. The leaf will also contain a midrib. Now it is showing few characters like a higher plant. The sporophyte is very well developed. The sporophyte, the seta is very long, and then it ends with a very well developed capsule. Now this is the gametophyte, which is very well developed. The seta is long, the capsule is very well developed. Now inside the capsule, when you will see, capsule is like this. It is covered with an operculum, and inside there you will find, when you have the tears of this, here you will find a number of teeth-like structure known as peristome teeth. Now this peristome teeth actually helps to regulate the opening and closing of the capsule, and it also regulates the spore dispersal. That is why Bryopsida, the members of Bryopsida is considered to possess very advanced characters. This is how Puruskaya has classified bryophytes into 3 important classes. Class 1 is Hepaticopsida, which is also known as liverworts. Class 2 is Anthoceratopsida, also known as hornworts, and Bryopsida, which are generally known as mosses. We will be studying about Funaria and an economically very important moss, Sphagnum. Students, I want you to go through the slides very carefully. I want you to download the study material. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel of Balughat Mahila Mahavidyalaya e-learning. I hope to see you in the next class.